Hey beauties, welcome back to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. I am your host, Sherry Ricard. I'm a medical professional, business leader, author, speaker, and adversity recovery expert, bringing you fascinating guests, business, beauty, and lifestyle tips to help you create a beautiful life, and always committed to keeping it real. Now let's dive in. Welcome back to the show, ladies. I am so happy that you're joining me today. My guest is Becca Powers. She is the author of Harnessed Your Inner CEO. She is a multi-six-figure Fortune 500 sales executive in the tech industry by day, women's career and life coach by night, and a yoga teacher on the weekends. She boasts that she's doing all of this with more freedom and flexibility than she's ever had in the past. Becca is sharing her raw, real, and radical story of overcoming the extreme adversity of being a success-driven woman in corporate America as a working mom of 4 children while dealing with the real dramas of her personal life. Well, hello, Becca. How are you?
I'm doing great today.
Good.
I'm on your show.
That's right. You're on Real Girl Talk. You're doing good today. Well, I am.
That's right.
So grateful that you're on the show. And we were just having some technical difficulties. So we worked through those. You know, it just reminds me of the adversity, and you work through it and you just keep pursuing. But Becca and I could not get connected. And now, you know, we are. So we must have something really good to talk about, because I always say when the enemy's trying to keep you from sharing your knowledge, he doesn't want you helping somebody out there in some way. So we must have something really good to talk about. He was trying to.
I'm pretty sure we do.
Our technical difficulties. So I want to chat with you because you wrote a book, Harness Your Inner CEO, and I don't know anything about the book because I haven't gotten it yet. So I want you to just kind of start out about the book, and then we're going to go back and talk about your journey. But tell me a little bit about the book, and what does that mean to harness your inner CEO?
I call it my bathroom floor moment. And I think many women can identify with it, whether you've lost loved ones or you've withstood more than you should ever withstand, right? Things like that, like those bathroom floor moments. And so for me, my bathroom floor moment came from withstanding numerous situations. I call it powering through. I'm a success-driven woman. I'm a businesswoman. And so I take on a lot. I've been a sales leader. And I have this persona of I can do it, which is a great trait. However, when sometimes you don't need to do it, right? And that's the discernment that needs to come in. But I kept powering through a toxic work environment. I had lost my father, and we can go into some more of those details. But a combined series of events happened. And after 3 years of powering through, I had a really bad day at work. And it was like 10 o'clock at night, got the kids to bed. I'm exhausted, taking off my makeup. And I literally have my breakdown moment. Like I hit my knees on the floor of the bathroom, and I just start crying, and I start praying to God that, like, please, like, take this from me. I can't power through another day. I can't go to sleep unfulfilled, unsatisfied, extremely fatigued one more night. Like I can't do it. And I made a bargain with God while I was there on my bathroom floor moment. And I said, if you please get me out of this situation, I promise that I will never do this to myself again.
Yeah.
Like, please help me. I could not see another way out other than powering through. And I knew that was going to kill me. Like I had already, and I'll get into some more of it, but I had enough signs going on that I was near hospital bound if I didn't stop. That's when my miracle came in. I get the goosebumps as I'm telling you this. So it's like, I call it from the bathroom floor to CEO of my own life. So I'm had my bargain with God, like, please get me out of this.
Yeah. And
then from it, almost like somewhere from the back, this thought came rushing through that I haven't thought about in 3 years. And it was something a former VP of sales told me when I was leaving Dell. In 2013, I was a regional sales manager for Dell. And I had left to pursue being a regional sales manager with another company that aligned to some mission mantras that I had. And we can get more into some of those things. But what he said to me at the time, I was so nervous to resign because I'm like, I'm 30 something years old, resigning from Dell as a regional sales manager. I'm like, who does this? This is crazy. And I thought maybe I'd get rejected or told not to come back or whatever.
Mm.
And what he instead told me was, I'm really proud of you, and he's like, you always have a home here at Dell, but more importantly, I want you to know that you are the CEO of your own life. And I just love where your heart and passion is. And so
Wow.
that day back in 2013, I remember vividly. It's one of those moments that I can remember where I was, what the weather was like, every finite detail. But I didn't take that to heart right away, right? I remember it.
Right.
It empowered me that day. But then situations changed, life happens. So 3 years later, I'm on the bathroom floor. I'm having this moment, this conversation with God, and boom, this thought comes right back to the foreground. And all of a sudden, I felt my self confidence increase. I
Wow.
felt my self worth increase as I sat there and I realized I am the CEO of my life. Why am I crying on the bathroom floor?
Right.
Like, I have so much
Who
more
does that?
power. I have so much more power than I thought I had. Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Right.
And so I always say, like, when I talk about this bathroom floor moment, a lot of women will come up to me if I'm at an event or on the side and be like, "Oh my God, I was on the bathroom floor too," and it's a moment that a lot of women can identify with. But yeah, so I rose in an empowered state from the bathroom floor, and then all after that was putting my life back together in a way that helped me thrive.
You know what? It's interesting because when you said that he told you you're the CEO of your life and how that stuck with you, and maybe you didn't act on it right then, but it planted that seed. I think that God sends people to us in the moment when we're supposed to have them to plant a seed. So it was just a seed. It wasn't
It
something that
was.
set you off, but that seed came back. That one little plant came back and propelled you to your next level, which I think is super cool because, I always said that I don't believe we ever meet anyone by accident. I think that we're all joined together for a reason. I have truly been blessed, and my listeners know because I praise my guests all the time that I learn so much from everyone that comes on the show. So I know that if I'm learning and I'm growing, then I know the people that are listening are learning and they're growing too. So that's just kind of like my ministry, right? So just kind of
Mhm.
sharing you, how else would you connect with the hundreds of thousands of people that download this show? How else would you connect with them unless you came on and told your story? So, you could be planting a seed. So I think we always have to be careful and watchful for what we're saying to someone because seeds can be planted negatively as well as something positive. So I think it's really cool that you're telling your story. And I want to know a little bit more too about your adversity and just kind of take it from there. So here you are, all of a sudden you have all this confidence. Where did you go? What do you do with all of that?
Here I am on the bathroom floor. Where do I go? It starts, and I talk about this in the book. I kind of frame the book in three parts: power, passion, and prosperity.
Mm,
It all started with me having to take my personal power back and rising into myself and into my wholeness and into my womanness. I
mm,
had to make that journey into being the matriarch of my own life and the CEO of my own life. So it started with getting real. I just had to do an assessment: what's working, what's not working, and not judge it, right? We can open up the side tab later, but this is where I go balance is unrealistic, because if you looked at my life on paper, I probably had the perfect life, the husband, the kids. I've got this prestigious role.
right.
I'm working out in the mornings. I got all these things.
Mm,
So like if you looked at my life on a spreadsheet or on a calendar, it looked pretty balanced. But at the inside, I was far from balanced. I was in disharmony, right? And so when
mm,
I talk about balance for people, I think it's all unique, and that we can find balance by knowing harmony inside ourselves. So I had to pay attention to that harmony. Are my relationships at work supporting me? Are they harming me? Are my daily tasks giving me life, or are they taking it from me? I really had to get real with myself and start asking those questions. And the answers aren't always pretty, right? Because once you get answers, then it's up to me as the CEO of my life and the CEO of your life for the listeners. When you
right.
get real with yourself, you're the one that has to implement the change.
When you're talking about a CEO does a lot of firing, right? And sometimes if you are the CEO of your life,
And my life is led by God, but we are still in control, right? So we have control. We
Mm-hmm.
are CEOs of our life that is being led with our knowledge. And where does our knowledge come from? But with us as a CEO and you're doing firing, sometimes you have to fire things that you're doing in your life. Like you can't do something that you really love to do, but maybe it's not to your best interest to do that anymore. Then you have to fire that, as well as people.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to fire some people in your life.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I have a chapter about that because it gets
love them
really
from a
true.
distance. You can love
Mhm.
people from a distance, and unfortunately I've had to do that as well. When you feel and in your spirit and your soul that someone is not right for you, and they're causing you harm, I don't believe that we should only roll with people that are at a certain level. I always say surround yourself with those that you want to aspire to be. And I think that's true, but we can't forget about those that also are looking for somebody like us, to aspire them to be what they want to be. So we can't leave
Absolutely.
those behind while we're trying to, surround ourselves with the best group of people. So take it from there. So let's talk about balance being unrealistic. What are some of the things that you think as women that we tend to try to balance in our life, and we say, I've got to balance out my work and my family, and and then my me time and my self-care Sunday, and there's all these things that we try to balance. Talk to us about what we replace. If balance is unrealistic, then what is realistic?
This week's episode is sponsored by Silver Lining Wellness Company. As you know, my husband and I have created this CBD brand and we stand behind it 100%. If you finally decided to try adding CBD to your health regimen, then Silver Lining is for you. It helps with sleep, mood, appetite, memory, inflammation, stress, and even pain. Check us out at www.silverliningwellnesscompany.com. And for a limited time, only for Real Girl Talk podcast listeners, you can use Real Girl Talk 15 for 15% off your entire order. Again, that's www.silverliningwellnesscompany.com. At checkout, use promo code Real Girl Talk 15 for 15% off your entire order. For a limited time only, go check us out.
Harmony,
Mm,
peace, inner peace. For me, that's the difference. I feel that this is more from a societal angle, that balance has become a calendar, like you said, self-care Sundays,
right.
Taco Tuesday. I mean, just
Yeah.
kind of making light of things, but
Right.
everything has become a schedule or a calendar, which is not all bad. We evolve.
Right.
We're humans, we're souls, we're constantly learning, evolving. And what I've found is that, especially, I would say, this model of career driven or success driven women that are multitasking, maybe we're raising families or really involved in our community, we put ourselves in a position where it comes from the heart, it comes from a place of service, but we easily overextend ourselves,
Mm,
right? So then this balance of, oh, I'm serving my community, I'm serving my family, I'm serving my job, I'm serving myself. We lose ourselves in that formula. And so what outwardly, like I said, what outwardly looks as balance is really causing disharmony. And that disharmony can cause disease in ourselves. And that's kind of what happened to me. Like, and by the time I hit the bathroom floor, my outside of my life looked, like I said, really balanced, really nice on a calendar. But inside, after 3 years of powering through and being in that type of mindset, I
mm.
formed two anxiety disorders. I had gained 30 pounds from stress. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, autoimmune disease, and my hair was literally falling out in clumps. Balance on the calendar wasn't working. My body was clearly saying, we're suffering. Like, Becca, we need to do something different.
So what'd you do?
Well, it started off, like I said, starting to claim my power back, my personal power.
Mhm.
And that did, you mentioned the relationship with God too. What I realized is, I think of, I have 4 kids. I have 2 kids, and 2 biological kids and 2 step kids, right? And I started thinking about my relationship with God differently.
Mm,
Um, And I was thinking of God as if he was my parent rather than like someone up there that's judging me or something like that.
Right.
And then once I did that, I was like, okay, as a mom, I would never want my kids to sacrifice themselves for me. And I don't think my God would want me sacrificing myself. My God wants me to thrive. My God wants me to be healthy. My God wants me to be happy. My God wants me to be wealthy. And I can't be any of those things when I'm crying on the bathroom floor in disease. I gave myself permission to put myself above source, God, universe, and allowed them to be the supporting force under me to give me life. And that was a mental adjustment. And it really aids to healthy self-worth too. And I talk about that in the book. It's in chapter 3, but those were some of the very fundamental things that call activate your self-worth. And in there, I have framework that I call the ladder of self-worth. And my decisions come from a place of my wellness and my health, rather than what is someone going to think of me or anything other than prioritizing myself.
Well, and you talked about God in judgment, and of course that's not what God does. You're right. I mean, he doesn't sit up there and judge us. He's there to guide us. But I think one of the things that we do, and I think you do talk about this in your book, because I was looking at some of these notes, is the self-sabotage part. Like, why do we do that? Why do we
I don't
seek
know.
this validation from people all the time? I mean, I know because I have friends or had friends that always constantly want this validation, whether it be from their spouse, or if they want it to be from another friend group or church group or their wine Wednesday group, whatever group they're in. They're constantly wanting validation in order to find themselves worthy and have this self-worth. And I know there's some people sitting right now listening going, well, I don't do that. But I really want you to think about, what do you make judgments on? How do you make decisions? Is it based on your knowing and what you pray about? Or is it what Susie Q is wearing to the office and she's so cute in it? Therefore, what I look like doesn't look so good. So I'm going to look more like Susie Q. Are you changing a personality because you need validation from someone? Are you being someone that you're not to fit into a group of individuals because you need validation from some type of group and you're looking to that group to give you validation? And then what we do is we don't realize it, but that alone is self-sabotaging who we actually are and who we're created to be. Why do we do that? Because we've all done it, right? We've all done it. There's just some of us that recognize it before others and some that don't recognize it at all. But what have you found in your writings and your research to come up with some type of conclusion of why we're constantly trying to be someone that we're not created to be when we're all created differently?
First and foremost, I think that the answer is it comes from our childhood, right? It comes from needing validation from, it carries into adulthood, but it's that little kid inside that is seeking the validation and approval, of our parents that we may not have gotten. And, I'm really happy that you brought that up, because that is a piece of my demise. And I think, like you said, it is for many people. So I'm going to share a little bit of a story about that. So here I am, a confident woman. I'm going into this new company. They have this mission mantra, putting people first. And when I'm in a leadership role, my personal mantra is people before profits. So to be able to work for a company that has that type of mindset, I was so happy. I was like, I'm in, right?
Right.
So, but I was new. So I was, instead of standing, like I use the word standing in your power a lot, but that's kind of how I look at it. Instead of standing in my power, I'm a little bit more listening and saying, yes to things, because I'm new and I'm just trying to get along with people. But the weirdest and most devastating piece happened, and this was really, it triggered my wound, and I talk about it a lot in the book, but it is all around approval and validation. So I was brought into the office. It was like 6 months on, and I was asked by leadership to tone it down. And when I'm in my power, I would have, if it was me now and today, I would say, then this might not be a fit for both of us.
Right.
And just and be real with myself. Like, I'm not going to turn it down. So perhaps this isn't a fit, but I was 6 months new. The thought just like confused me. And so I went compliant right away. And I was like, well, I'll do my best. What do you mean? Trying again, I went into this like seeking and
Yeah.
valid approval and validation zone. And I was like, I'll do my best. And they're like, let's consider you Becca Light. I was so confused by that statement, and it destroyed my self worth and my self confidence because I didn't leave that job. And so I constantly tried to meet some expectation that I was never going to meet. I
Right.
was never going to get their approval. I was never going to get this validation. Then several months later, my dad died. So like all this hurricane of stuff happened, but it really at the core center of it, and where I'm going to bring this back to, was I was seeking approval and validation from someone or an organization who was never going to give it to me. And I stayed in that state for 3 years. And that's why I got so sick.
Ding, ding, ding. I'm thinking back because, I too have worked for, multi-million dollar companies in the medical industry, been in healthcare for 25 years and, medical business sales and pharmaceutical sales for 15 years. And I did work for a particular company for many years and did very well. Was one of their top sales leaders, only female on the team, because in the medical sales business industry, that's just the way it is. And that's cool. I don't mind that at all. But I did find that I was beginning to feel just like you are saying, is that I was trying to be something that I was not in order to fit into this man group. So as a woman in the group of 12 men, I can't have an emotional moment. I can't have a female thought. I can't basically
Mhm.
be who I am, because I'll be judged for that. Right. So I had to be tough like a dude. you know
I relate. I'm in
and,
technology. So
yeah, so it's almost like, you had to just laugh at their stupid, jokes and pretend that they're not offensive or, any of those things, because you don't
right.
want to lose the job and you don't want to bring attention on yourself that you're not strong enough to have the job. So what you do is you do begin to get sick,
Yeah.
and I did feel that I was constantly getting headaches. I was always feeling like that I was going to have to brush things off in order to continue to fit in. And I loved all of them. I mean, they were all great men and they were all supportive, but there were things that I wish that I felt like I could have said in a group to get them to actually tone it down, because there were a lot of things that, men get together in their guys, right? Just like us women, we get together and we'll have a conversation amongst ourselves that we might not have in a group of men, because they don't even understand what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And so there was a lot of times I really didn't want to be in the midst of their conversations, because it was uncomfortable. And I just didn't feel good about what they were talking about, but I had to keep my mouth shut, or I felt like I did. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
I had to escape that environment myself. So I completely 100% understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and it happens, or like I like to say, it happens organically, right? I could tell you're a
Right.
powerful woman. I'm a powerful woman. We get in situations. And so for the listeners, I just want you to know that if you find yourself in a situation where you somehow are seeking approval and validation, that there are ways out. And you brought up a really good point where you had mentioned that, what if you lose your job, right? And I talk about it in the book, but I went down those what ifs. I was like, what if I lose my job? What if I speak up and I'm fired? I'm the primary breadwinner. What if I
Mm,
speak up and I'm not fired, but then I'm not respected, or like all these things, right?
right.
And once I got in a reflective state and I got through that situation, I started looking at things differently. And this is what I want to share with the listeners. Like, what if you stood up for yourself? What would that do to your self confidence?
Mm,
Right? What if in this situation you prioritized yourself first? How would that reinforce more positive actions for yourself? So there's another set of what if questions that exist that we don't default to.
and I'm going to bring this up because, it's real girl talk. And I am who I am, and I don't shy away from talking about certain subjects. And let me preface this by saying it doesn't matter who's listening, what you agree with, whether you agree to be vaccinated or unvaccinated in your work. But Becca brought up a good point. What if I get fired and I'm the breadwinner in my family? What if the same rules apply? If you're feeling like you are having to be somebody that you're not in order to fit in with a group, the same is true if you, to me, and Becca may feel differently, and that's okay. She can tell us, but I feel that whatever you feel is best for you is what you need to do in that particular role. So I know right now the big topic of conversation is, what do I do? My company is mandating me to be vaccinated and I don't feel good about it. Not right now. Some people don't feel good right now. They may feel good in a couple of months. They may feel good next year. They may not ever feel good about it. Who cares? That's
Right.
what they feel. But now but sadly, they're having to decide whether to take an experimental drug. And yes, I do call it experimental because I'm in the healthcare industry and I know what I'm talking about. They have to take an experimental drug in order to keep their job and keep a roof over their head and feed their families. That's a tough situation. So if we're going to be CEOs of our lives, we have to make the right decisions for ourselves. So
Right.
I just wanted to kind of put that out there because it's a huge topic right now. And we are talking about taking control in that work environment. But I'm going to let Becca kind of weigh in on that's tough. It's one thing to say, I'm in a job and I don't feel comfortable, or I'm in a job and I feel like I'm being emotionally abused, or I feel like I'm being overworked. But now you're talking about being in a job and them holding a carrot over your head of, do you want to feed your children? Then you drink the potion. So
Right.
it basically, it's like a Halloween thing, right? It's like, do you want to feed your kids? Then take the jab. If you don't want to feed your kids, then you don't have to take it. So how do we take control and be the CEO of our life in that situation? And this is completely off topic, but
Yeah, no, but
it
it's
fits
so
into what we're
important
talking
because
about.
it comes down to that courage, and doing that self-assessment. Is what I'm doing serving me? Is it harming me? And being forced to do anything
Right.
is not a situation you want to be in.
You're right. And it doesn't matter what it is, right? Because I mean,
It doesn't matter.
we have women. I had Gretchen Carlson on my show, and a lot of people know her from, her time at Fox. She was Miss America and her time at Fox, and
Mhm.
where she had to actually sue Fox, right? And she won that $20 million case, but she still has basically tape over her mouth because she can't talk about specific things, because she did sign a non-disclosure agreement. And I think that, if you are in a job and you feel like your boss, your supervisor, or even a coworker is making you feel uncomfortable, maybe they're making sexually advances to you and you're like, I can't quit my job, I just got to put up with it, maybe I'll just try to transfer. Girlfriend, that's not the right thing to do, because you're enabling that behavior. Because once
Right.
you transfer to a different department, he's going to pick another victim. That's how I look at it.
Ooh,
So I
just
think
got the goosebumps that you said that.
that's those things that we have to expose, right? We can't, just like we can't stay in a position to where we're constantly feeling like we're being bullied. And if you're being asked to be quiet because you have sexual advances towards you, or you're being asked to be quiet because something happened in the workplace and you don't want to bring attention to the organization, if they're asking you to take the vaccine, you can't just be quiet. I mean, it all kind of works together. So talk to us a little bit, Becca, about finding that strength, and how do you find that strength, and what do you do just if you feel like you need to walk away and take control and CEO of your life? How do we do that?
I think the very first step, and I had mentioned this powering through, as women specific, we power through, we deal with the situation, we put the tape over our mouths, we just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stop. You have to give yourself permission to pause and admit that things are messed up. Like I think that there's a real power in admitting that things are not going the way that you want, or the way that you feel is right for you. Because we don't stop to admit we keep going. And my pivotal moment came when I finally admitted that, like, I don't have it under control. I don't know the answers. I need help. And that help at first came in a call in prayer. The
Mm.
next morning, I called one of my really good girlfriends and I just cried. I said, "Girl, I ended up on the floor last night." And, I can still remember the conversation. I was like, I need another way and I don't know, but I know it's coming because I had this moment and this clarity. And then she, within 24 hours, had a job lead for me.
Wow.
And so in admitting, you invite in possibility.
You know what?
So
It's really cool that you said that too, because if anybody is facing a situation, and we're kind of veering on and off topic, but if anybody's facing a situation right now where you feel that you can't quit your job because of whatever reason, you're being bullied to do something you don't want to do, whatever it is. My first suggestion to you is, and this is what I did, is immediately go to LinkedIn. I really, Becca, I think I need to have a LinkedIn expert on this show, because I know that if you go to LinkedIn and there is a way that you can start connecting with people that work in different organizations and really put yourself out there, there's something better for you. If you know in your spirit and your soul that you're in a position where you don't need to be in, whether it be in a marriage or be in a job or whatever it is,
mhm,
once you put yourself out there and you start seeking, I believe doors will open, and I think they'll open bigger than they ever were before. And that's what happened with you.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought up LinkedIn, especially since we are kind of flirting around this job
Yeah.
piece. Is that I mean, I have a couple life hacks in my book, but one is always have your resume ready. You
Yeah.
never know when you admit that you finally need change, because something happens spiritually within us when we admit that we are no longer able to power through the situations that are stressing us out. When
Mm.
that moment happens, you don't know where the next lead. Like, if I didn't, I always had that as a best practice. I've been in sales and sales leadership my almost my entire career. So I've always had my resume ready. But when that moment happened where I was like, I can't do this job anymore, and I finally said it to somebody else, I had a job lead within a day and I had my resume ready, my LinkedIn was ready, and I was ready to go.
Mm.
So there is a power in our network. And so, yes, I agree with you. Have your LinkedIn ready. There's ways that you can utilize it. You can turn on recruitment. There's a recruitment button. So if you have your profile at our all-star level, you'll probably get some, recruiters reaching out to you within a couple of days.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And to go and look at some other folks. This is what people have asked me, and I've helped a couple of friends, kids after they graduate from college, on making their LinkedIn look better. And basically just go to the profile of those people that you admire in higher positions and positions that you aspire to be in, and look how they write out their profiles and look what they have on their LinkedIn, and then just use all of your talents and gifts and mimic that format. You obviously, you can't steal their background, but you can mimic the format that they used using
Sure.
your own talents and gifts. So I think that's a really good little hack for those where we're talking about, don't take bullying in your job, just roll out. Yeah.
I agree. And there's one thing that I would like to add for, like, a how do you get out of a situation, whether
Yeah.
again it's a relationship or a job or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've talked a lot about that personal power piece, but I also want to talk about passion. And passion is confusing to some people. Like, we all know passion and purpose, but
Mm.
people, how do I find it and what does it mean? And then a lot of times people think they need to monetize on it. But I can tell you something about passion. I'm a very passionate person, but um, passion gives you life, it gives you joy, and it gives you fulfillment. And when you're running your insides from that place of, I call it like your fire, more opportunities have, like, crazy stuff happens, magic happens, the miracles happen. For me, when I'm telling, like, listeners and I'm working with women, they're like, how do you find your passion? It's not something that's aloof. It's really in front of us the whole time. I'm like, look at your Pinterest, look at your Instagram, look, what do you follow? What do you like? Those are your passions. Like, for me, I love yoga, I love writing, I love creative expression. These things were right in front of my face and I was disconnected to them
Right.
the whole time. And then once I started coming back into my power, I was like, oh yeah, I love to write. I love creative expression. I wasn't doing it to monetize. I just started doing the things that made me feel happy and fulfilled, and where I could like start writing and lose 2 hours that felt like 5 minutes, and so I'd like to encourage listeners to invite in passion and give yourself permission to do and experience the things that you enjoy.
I love that, Becca, because it just brings us right back to vision. And so when you have a passion for something and you have a vision for it, I mean, the Bible says, write your vision and make it clear. Hello. It says in Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinketh, so is he. So as long as you think that you're not worthy, you won't be. As long as you think that you deserve what you're getting, that's exactly what you will get. It's as a man thinketh, so is he. Think about being powerful. Think about being in that leadership role. Think about leaving that job and leaving a cake behind that says this job sucks. No, I'm just kidding.
It could.
Here's a cake. Take this job, take this cake and shove it. If you live locally, my daughter makes cakes. She'd probably be happy to make that one for you. But
So funny.
It's just a thought. But yeah, it's true. It's, you create your vision and we're drawn to things that we have a passion for, and we're drawn to things that we keep before us. So I'm just going to plug vision boards because I'm a huge believer in vision
Me
boards.
too.
I hate that we couldn't have our live workshop last year because of COVID, but we are going to do it again next year. I don't care. We didn't get to have it last year or this year. And it's just, well, we did have it last year. We didn't have it this year and it just sucks. But anyway, well, thank you, Becca. I appreciate you so much. Tell everybody where we can get your book first, and then where we can find you on social media.
All right. So if you go to beccapowers.com/harness your inner CEO, all 4 options are available to purchase straight from the website. I have ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook available. And then my social handles are the same across platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. It's at Becca Powers 1313.
At Becca Powers 1313. Well, thank you so much. And guys, if you really enjoyed this episode, take a screenshot and put it in your stories, and make sure that you tag Becca, Becca Powers 1313 and Real Girl Talk Podcast, so we know that you were listening today. Thank you again, Becca. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you for having me. It was a great show.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Girl Talk and listening to this episode all the way through. I appreciate my loyal listeners. And if you enjoy Real Girl Talk, will you go back and leave us a rating and review? It really helps me bump up on iTunes so I can reach more women and inspire them all around the world. And until next week, remember, stand firm in your beliefs, keep your faith in God, and know that you are worthy.